you guys all for attending. Um, Today we're doing a presentation with Mike Maxon. Mike Maxon is the regional production manager for the Americas for Grundfos. He's located out of Fresno, California. Um, you've been working at the manufacturing plant for about 23 years. He's worked around the small circulators his entire career at Grundfos. See, you guys it's up that high. Grundfos produces about 17 million pumps annually. They are the global leader in the advanced pump solutions. So, Mike, if you want to introduce yourself any more than that, I'll pass it off. But just so you guys know, there is a chat feature. If you guys have any questions, there's also a Q&A. I put that up too. But if you guys have any questions while we're going through, just dump them into the chat. Anything I can't answer on my own, or if I think it's worth having the entire group here, I'll ask Mike directly to give you guys an answer. But with that, Mike, just take it away for me. Go ahead.
All right. So I am the product manager for Circulators for the Americas. This new product is really does show Grundfos's leadership in technology for pumps. Obviously, this is Circulators. We have 4 new products that are all within one family, 2 heating and 2 hot water recirc. We'll start with the heating products. I know for this group it's probably mostly hot water recirc, but I hear there's some heating. So, and the 2 products are very much aligned as far as their capabilities and the way they work. So you'll get a lot out of both, I think. So for the heating, we have the UPSe and the Alpha product. Right, there it is. So we have 4 part numbers for these two for the UPSe, 1 rotated flange, 1 standard cast iron, and 2 for the Alpha. And you can see they are very similar to each other as far as their overall build. It's really how you operate the pump that makes them different. You could think of this as kind of the UPSe as the Alpha 1 of the past, and this is the Alpha 2. But in reality, they are far superior to the Alpha 1 and the Alpha 2. So we have quite a few value propositions in these products. The best energy rating of all pumps of their class of this size. If you use the settings within the pump, you can increase that energy efficiency that you would save by putting the pump in the mode that would run the most efficient and the best for that application. And we'll go through how that works here in a little bit. Wiring is an improved wiring system, and it's an awesome wiring system for ease of installation. Pump does have dry run protection. All of these pumps that we're going to go over have dry run protection. First, for a pump of this size, robust startup, and the UPSe and the Alpha together can replace 90% of the pumps on the market that are in this size. So back to the old 1 pump on the truck. So both pumps have the self-venting. Remember, the old pumps had the little vent screw on the back end. You'd open it up to get water into that rotor can. We don't have that anymore, but we ensure that the water will get into the rotor can. That's self-venting. They both have dry run protection, the robust start. They both have the improved wiring. We're talking about the UPSe and the Alpha here. And they both have the best energy rating on the market. Now, the Alpha, it is Bluetooth connectable to your phone using the Grundfos Go New Pump Tool app that's available right now on the Apple store as well as the Android. Through the phone, you can do a guided setup. With a guided setup, it'll ask you a series of questions and guide you through setting this pump up for exactly what that application is. We'll go over that a little bit more later. Flow set, also with minimum flow and maximum flow. Error log, system air venting, that's separate from the other venting we talked about. This is for the entire heating system that would vent. It's firmware updatable. and trend data. The pump, you can connect to the pump after it's been running a while and see how the pump has been running and where it's been running. And we'll look at that later too. We have new auto adapts. On the Alpha, there is 3 auto adapt settings, 1 constant curve auto adapt, and 1 for constant pressure, and an auto adapt for proportional pressure. The Alpha is a touch screen, touched on the faceplate of it. It's not buttons, it's just simple touch. And it does have a display with watts, feet ahead, and flow. And that is changeable by simply touching the icon next to the number, and it'll toggle through the different values. So looking at we call it the foil, the faceplate, the top of the pump. The UPSe does have a button. It's not the touch screen, it's a button. And with this one, when you touch this button, it'll toggle through the 3 different settings for the constant curve, 3 different settings for the constant pressure, and then for the proportional pressure. You barely see it down here. There is a triangle. That triangle is the warning and alarms light. And there is a QR code on the front to take you to the GPC page for this product. And from there, you can get the full INO, any other documentation that we have on it published, as well as all the specs for that product. Now, the Alpha, again, has the GPC landing page, but also another QR code that'll take you to the app. The Bluetooth connection. I know it looks like Wi-Fi, but it's actually Bluetooth. The arrows here will toggle you through the different settings of the pump, different speeds. But if you touch this icon here, it'll put it in constant pressure. Touch this one, it'll put it in constant curve, and then you can change the speed. And over here would be auto adapt, just like the old one was in that way. If the product has been set up by the phone icon will be on. So that lets you know that none of these settings on the screen are being used. It is set up through the phone. One little note is if you have it set up through the phone and you want to just test something, you want to run it real quick at, say, a constant curve. I've done this, it works pretty well. If you touch the constant curve, it'll take it to that, and you can run it through that speed, do whatever you want to check. And then if you just touch the phone icon again, it will put it back into the same mode that it was before. Whatever was set will still be set. If the screen has not been touched for a few minutes, it will lock. The lock icon will light up, and you have to touch and hold that lock icon to take it back out of lock, so that way you work the screen again. It is lockable from the app. If you lock it from the app, it must be unlocked from the app. So and with that sense, you can lock out the homeowner as long as they don't get the app. For that error log on the UPSe, it's a little triangle. It'll be yellow if it's a alarm or warning, red if it's an alarm, red the pump is stopped. It will tell you what the error is by blinking. 4 blinks is a dry run. If it's red, 2 blinks, it's under voltage, yellow. Now on the Alpha, the Grundfos eye will change color to either the yellow or the red, and it will give you a code, error code on the numeric display. The ease of wiring. This is really a pretty good wiring system. I've talked to a lot of guys that have put in pumps and they really like this. Is run your wires up through the hole. This block will come in a bag separate with the pump. And you just run the wires through the hole, and the toolless levers here are able to be picked up. You plug the wires in, you lock them back down with your finger, and then you just plug into the pump, and it's wired. So you're able to do all the wiring out in space outside of the box. The highest energy rating, it's rated at 193, which is the highest rating that Hydraulic Institute has given to any pump this size. and that will be listed on the box. This label that Hydraulic Institute has developed will be on the box. They have this calculation, the Hydraulic Institute does, using the ER, the energy rating that the pump has, the WAIP, which is the weighted average input power. And it goes through this calculation. They're using 3,000 operating hours, 13 cents per kilowatt hour. Obviously, they weren't looking at California to come up with an energy savings. So it says that this pump will save $45 per year. You might say a UPS 1558 wouldn't even use that much power. You're right. This is going against the most inefficient pump on them that they could actually find. I don't even know where they found this pump, but it is the highest energy rating. You can see the 0018E is at 188. The dry run protection. Dry run has been known as the most common reason for a pump to break down, most common reason for a pump to fail. And with this dry run protection, this is the algorithm that it goes through. What it'll do is it tests for if it's never seen water before, first time installed, it does know the difference. It will check for water. If it sees water, fine, it'll run. If it doesn't, it's going to rotate the impeller back and forth, looking for that feel of water, the wattage that it would expect to see. If it doesn't see it, it'll stop for 30 times. Keep trying. Every time it stops, it'll wait 30 seconds, waiting for that water to come in. After 30 attempts, if it still hasn't seen water, it'll go to permanent stop. You have to touch the pump now to re-engage it to get to try again. Hopefully at that point, somebody realizes that it's dry and will add water to the system. If it has seen water before, it has been running. Now it knows there's water in the rotor can. So we know it can run for, I think it's 24 hours like that. We don't want to run for 24 hours, but it can. So what we do is we don't want false alarms in this. So if it sees dry run, it'll keep on running until about 20 hours, at which point it will it'll stop again. Now it'll do the test and it'll wait. It'll do the test again, it'll wait. And then it'll eventually go into alarm. So the pump does collect data as far as where it's been running. And so with that and with the screen, you could do some simple troubleshooting on the spot. With the screen, you can see what the head of the system is, what the flow is, and what the wattage of the pump is, simply like I said, by touching it. But if you connect with the phone, this is on the alpha. Connect with the phone, you can see the trend data. And here's an example of the trend data. You can see where the pump's been running, where the last 10 cycles are. It doesn't have a clock in this one, so it doesn't know how long it's been off. It knows how long it's been on, but it doesn't know how long it's been off. So we could look at the last 10 cycles, what the head, what the flow, and what the temperature, and what the cycle times were. Or we could look at the last 100 cycles. The last 100 cycles is a conglomeration of 10 cycles, 10 cycles, 10 cycles over and over again. It is a permanent magnet rotor. Being permanent magnet, a lot of people are afraid that it will attract metal particles to it, but the shaft and the impeller are not magnetic materials. They're ceramic and composite, so they will not attract these materials. And since there's a bearing plate here, they can't get into the rotor, so we're safe from those. Robust start. When it starts, if a lot of heating pumps sit for an entire season, and when they start, sometimes they get blocked up. So this will shake back and forth to break that free. We are firmware updatable. If we release a new firmware, when you connect to the pump again, your app will say, hey, there's been a firmware update. Would you like to update this pump? You just say yes, it'll drop the new firmware into the pump, and now your pump will be up to date. That's new for the market also. It's a great feature that we could be able to make improvements and send them out and get them dropped into the pumps.
Hey, Mike, just one quick question on the shaking. Um, is that the same for the Alpha? That's the domestic stainless steel. Will it do the same robust start?
Yes, and I'll go through all the features of that one here in a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we talked about the venting of the pump, getting the air out of the rotor can, which that air then goes into the system. We also have for heating pumps, the getting the air out of the entire system. Once you set up the pump, here's the end of the guided setup. The last question I'll ask is, do you want to go through a system air vent? At this point, you could say, yeah, I want to do the system air vent, and you can tell it how long you want to do the air venting and what your minimum flow would be. And then what the pump will do is it'll pulsate to that maximum flow, to the minimum flow, to the maximum flow. We know what that does is it compresses and decompresses those air bubbles and pushes them out the air vent of the whole system much faster. Since this is going to be doing this for an hour or so, you don't have to be there watching it and nursing it. You could just have it do this. And then once it's done doing that hour air vent, it will go right back to that setting that you told it to run at. If it was an auto adapt or constant curve, whatever you set it at, that's where it's going to run. And then it will continuously monitor for air. It'll keep looking in the system to see if it sees air. If it sees air of, I believe it's the size of 5 dice go by the impeller, it will notice it. It won't do anything right away. It'll log it in the error log so that when you go back to it and look at it, you can see that it's been seeing air. Once it sees air 144 times, it will go into that air purge to try to get it out. You can't set minimum flows and maximum flows. I think this is good if you're going to do a auto adapt, and maybe you don't want the pump to ever go below this example here, 1 gallon a minute. Just tell the pump never go below a gallon a minute. It'll still continue to fluctuate and change its speeds as it's set for that setting, but never go below that gallon a minute. Or you can set a maximum flow as well. So as I said on the screen, we could on the front of the pump, we could change the settings to some degree to what we want to be. But we also have the guided assist, guided setup. And with this, it'll ask you questions, and through these questions, we will set the pump up to be what is the most optimal for this system. And being the most optimal, we're going to have the best energy savings, the least amount of noise, truly the best it could be. This is a couple examples. The first screen is going to ask you, what type of system is this? And it'll give you a drawing of that system, so we make sure we're talking the same pump. If it's a zone pump, it shows you what the zone pump is. So make sure that, again, we're talking the same thing. Then the next screen is going to ask, okay, on this zone pump, what kind of heating elements are you using? In this case, baseboard. The next screen is going to say, okay, our mode that we recommend for this would be a constant flow. You could also do a constant curve, but we recommend constant flow. We choose constant flow. The next screen is going to say, would you like to calculate this flow or just take the flow that you know? If you know that the flow should be 2 gallons a minute, set it for 2 gallons a minute and be done. Or we could do a calculation. And through this calculation, it's going to ask you what the size of the area of this zone is that we're heating. How many BTUs per square foot do we need for this zone? And what delta T do we want on the water flow? And then it's going to calculate that and give you a flow that you can set the pump at. Auto adapt. The auto adapt is now a seasonal feeling. Since we're monitoring how long the pump runs each time, we could see that, and how many zones are opening up by how far we, what our flow rate is. We can see that the season's getting colder and say, well, season's getting colder, we should step it up a little bit, increase our flows, increase our performance. As those are decreasing, how many zones are open at one time and how long they're open, we might see that it's warming up and we'll just decrease those. So again, it's a seasonal auto adapt. Constant curve auto adapt. When I heard this one, constant curve, what are we adapting if we're constant curve? The word constant, see, is the word not changing. But we all know that mini pumps are put in speed 3, also known as never callback. So that on that coldest day of the year, that zone, that system will get the max amount of flow. On the moderate day, it's still going to get maximum amount of flow, but it's going to work. So what we've done is we made this constant curve auto adapt where the pump will start every time it starts. It's going to start in speed 1. If it's that really, really cold day, the pump's still going to be running after a considerable amount of time. I believe after 45 minutes, it says it's still running. It must really be cold. And that's when it's going to start speeding up. It'll speed all the way up slowly, all the way up to max speed, so that now we can make sure we get more water delivered to that zone, more heat delivered to that zone. So here we can see on the UPSe as well as the Alpha, we have these speeds set. With the Alpha, you can get everything in between. You can go from constant curve, full speed at 99%, 98%, all the way down to minimum speed. It's almost infinite number of settings. But you can see if you have a duty point in there somewhere, the UPSe could be at least very, very close to it. Here we have a chart showing all the advantages of the Alpha and UPSe and where they lie out with our old Alpha 1, the Alpha 2, as well as our main competitors. I think the Alpha is far and away a better product than anything else that's ever been on the market. 230 degrees, 55 or 131, 55 Celsius or 131 Fahrenheit ambient. That's really quite good for an electronic device. 175 PSI. So we passed that old 145 that we've always been at before. Now, I know this is one that a lot of people are looking forward to, the Alpha HWR and the Alpha Comfort. So we have two products. Alpha HWR for systems with a recirc line, Alpha Comfort for systems without a recirc line. They both have the touch interface. They both have the same stuff that we were talked about before about the self-venting of the pump. They both have the robust start. The improved wiring is on the Alpha HWR because the Alpha Comfort has a line cord. They both have the dry running protection. The Alpha HWR has the numerical readout. What we're calling flow sense, being able to know what our flow is giving us the capability of making sure we fire up tankless boilers and preventing pinholes within pipes. And built-in temperature sensor. The Alpha Comfort has the great feature of being able to make sure that we don't have bleed over across our comfort valve, as well as the flow sense gives us the capability of making sure that we don't offset a house hot water system on the pressure of the hot water side. So I said we have two products, but we have 5 part numbers because we have the HWR will come in the union, same union that we've always used on the Alpha and the UPS, and a stainless flange. I said same union, but these are different housings. These are optimal hydraulic performance. You can't take this pump head and put it on a UPS pump housing. It must use this pump housing. But they are in 1529 as well as 1555 on the HWR products. Then we have the Alpha Comfort System, which uses the same valve that we're using today, the new XL valve. Same valve. And so you see it has the line cord and no numeric display. So if you look real close here, you'll see the speeds here are labeled 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, and 1 inch. That's for our pinhole reduction capabilities. What that does is it sets the flow rate for the size of pipe that you're using. I'll cover this here in a little bit, but that's what these are: one gallon a minute, 2 gallon a minute, 3 gallon a minute. We still have an auto adapt, temperature control, 24/7. And again, if the pump is set by an app, the phone light will be on. QR code will take you to the landing page for the product, for all the information on the product. The other QR code will take you to the landing page where you can get the Go app, but also the Home app. The HWR product will have a Home Users app. In the Auto Adapt, we have a little bow tie down here, or the valve symbol. That's for putting in an Auto Adapt for sensing that when the valve is closed. So there's a lot here on this page. If you just use the front screen to set your settings and you use the temperature icon and you keep it in auto adapt, it's going to be at 1 gallon a minute. It's going to have a minimum off time of 15 minutes, maximum on time of 10 minutes. And it's going to look for a 10-degree temperature rise to turn the pump off. Now, again, that's using the screen here. If you go into the app, every one of these numbers here you could change. You could modify them to whatever your application is. If you set it for half inch pipe, you're still gonna get the 1 gallon a minute. Now we're gonna have 5-minute max on time. And you can see the difference here otherwise is the flow rate. Those flow rates go for the 24/7 mode. 24/7 mode, there's nothing gonna turn the pump off. It's just gonna always run at that speed. What I've said is, if somebody's putting in this mode, they should be using an exterior control system, such as maybe a timer, a remote timer. Maybe they want to use a Wi-Fi timer, so they'll put it in this mode instead. And then the auto adapt on the comfort system is running 1 gallon a minute with a minimum off time of 15 minutes, and it's going to run until the timer or until the valve closes, which is usually about 5 minutes. Running until the valve closes, that is preventing the bleed over into the cold side of the hot water. So we don't need to wire an aquastat anymore because we are sensing the water temperature. It's a temperature estimator. And on this front screen, you can see here that we could actually read on the pump what the fluid temperature is. That's actually the default. If we touch the button here, we could see what the wattage of the pump is and what the flow rate is. But being able to see the temperature, I think, is a great thing. But this aquastat that it has built in, if we go into the app, we could set either the temperature on or the temperature off, or we could set it for temperature that we want to maintain. So we know that since it's a temperature estimator, it's actually pretty good at getting the temperature right. It's just not really fast. So if we set it for 105 degrees, in reality, once it shuts off seeing 105 degrees, the water temperature is going to be a little bit higher than that, maybe 107 or 108. So the pinhole risk reduction, we think, is a great feature. The PEX industry, we've heard of them denying warranties for pinholes if there's a hot water recirc system in place. We're talking to the PEX industry now about not doing that when there's an alpha in place, because we can be able to monitor our flow rate and with our flow sense and keep the flow rate below their maximum flows. Like I said, they want 2 feet per second, and that does change for copper and PEX. We have erred on the slower side because we know it'll still work, and we have erred at 1 gallon a minute, 2 gallons a minute, 3 gallons a minute for the different size pipes. But the actual calculations are 1.3, 2.3, and 3.8. Again, if you go in, if you do the guided setup, it'll ask you what size pipe it is and what kind of pipe. And so you could actually, through the guided setup, set it for the 1.3 or the 1.6 if it's copper. It is suited for tankless boilers because we can have that minimum flow rate and make sure that we keep our flow rates above the activation flow rates for the boilers. The timer is built into the pump, and it will be set when you're doing the guide setup. It'll ask you if you want to set a schedule, or you can just connect to the pump anytime with your Bluetooth phone and set the schedule. It is battery backup on the on this timer, so if you lose power, next time you turn it on, it still knows what time of day it is. It still knows the schedule, and it will maintain that schedule. It doesn't have to be readjusted. The battery will last, it says right here, 8 years without power, or 16 years life of the battery. So it'll last quite a while. This is what it looks like in the Go app. This would be the installer's app, the Go app. You can set the schedule to be by day if you want weekends to be different than weekdays, and you can set multiple run times for any day. Homeowners will have their own app, so that way we could, with the homeowner app, they won't have all of the control modes of changing the pump as the installer's app, the Go app. But the homeowner could set a schedule as well. And the homeowner could set a vacation. If they're going on vacation, they could tell the pump that they're going on vacation, to that way it won't run during that week, during that time off that they're not going to be home. They could still see how the pump is running. They can still get the data of what the pump is doing. So just like the heating product, we can get plenty of information on the faceplate of the pump, but we also have, through the Go app, all of the same trend data that we had on the heating pump. When the pump is set up, you could do a report. You create a report that'll tell you how you set it up, when you set it up, what pump it is, everything about that pump. Then you could email that pump to you, that report to yourself. This is the same for the heating as well as the HWR product. And one thing I kind of like about this is if you go set up this pump and then send yourself the report, if in 6 months the homeowner calls you up and says, my pump's not running right, they can go to their home app. They can create a report on their home app and then send that report to you. So you could pull up your original record, originally how you set the pump up, your report, and compare it to what it's set up now, what's changed. So the guided setup. Through the guided setup, when you could first set it up by only pushing the temperature icon and what size pipe you have and walk away. We'll leave it at that. Or better yet is go through the guided setup. In the guided setup here, we're going to say, where's the pump at, return line, or actually, I think we got rid of that question at Osborne's request, actually. Now we expect the HWR product to be on the return line to the heater. But it'll ask you, how do you want to set this up? Do you want to set it on temperature control, or just put it on a cycle, on so many minutes, off for so many minutes, or run a constant curve or constant flow? And if you set, once you do this screen, then you can go through and set those temperatures, set the flow rates. You could set the fallbacks. Fallbacks are minimum time on, minimum time off, maximum time on, maximum time off. So you can set those forward numbers. Those are for if the pump is in a hot garage and you want to have the pump turn on at 100 degrees fluid temperature. I know my garage can be 100 degrees in the summer, so that pump would never turn on. So we'll have a fallback. So we'll say, okay, no matter what the temperature of fluid is, turn on after 20, 30 minutes, whatever that might be. For the comfort system is this icon, this image here is the old comfort system. This would be the new one. But now it's going to shut off. At the first time it runs, it's going to run for about 2 hours looking for what the wattage is of a closed valve. It's going to learn what a closed valve is by wattage. And then from that, it'll always shut off at that wattage. And so when it knows the valve is closed, it shuts off, prevents that bleed over. And then it'll, I think it's off for about 15 minutes, it'll run again. I have a few test sites out right now, and the people I'm hearing say that does work. They're not getting the warm water on the cold side. So here's the competitors chart. Again, I think we blow everybody away as far as what we can do with this product. Just the fact that it isn't, you don't have to wire a aquastat, I think will capture a lot. Again, max ambient of 131 Fahrenheit. Max system pressure 175. Max fluid temperature is 230, but of course, we don't like for open systems for it to be that warm. I think all you guys know that at the regular systems are going to be a max of 140, and that's kind of where we like them to be. Above that, you start getting hard water deposits. So that's what I had. I could also go through the answer any questions.
Mike, I got some questions while you're pulling the app up.
Yep.
Because even us at Osborne are dying to get our hands on this pump. When does the domestic pump release? Do we know yet?
We'll have volumes of them early second quarter of next year.
Okay, so yeah, just so everyone has that in their head, has a time frame. The cast iron ones are out. We actually even already have them in our stock. So the UPSe and the Alpha for the heating systems, we have them. They're already out, and then you're looking hopefully second quarter next year for the stainless steel for the HWR. I'm probably the only one that'll even know this, Mike, because I'm the one that's used the app. One thing I noticed when I was on it, and you guys might have fixed it. How do you set up the schedule if you're running the pump like overnight? Does it let you do that now? Can you go to like 11:59 and then create one for like 12 a.m.?
Okay, so that is going to come out in a I've had a couple new releases on that. I don't think they've done that yet. So the system that you're running right now and the same one I'm running now is currently set up to when you set a time, you're setting the off time. That will be changed by the time we release to be setting the on time. That's what we all expect, right? When you're setting up a schedule, I want to run from this time to that time.
Oh, I completely actually even missed that. And you even sent me emails. That makes way more sense. Okay, so no, that answers that. A question. Because I know it has the built-in timer, but then we're talking, if it's being controlled by another source, does it actually have like a start-stop input on the alphas?
No.
Okay, so there's no enable or disable, like from a boiler or from like a BMS or something.
Nope, we're going to, on a heating pump, we're going to turn it on and off by power.
Yep. Okay. And well, and now that you have the battery, you actually answered that question for me too. Because does this have an issue? I know like some of the comfort, like the comfort PMs, if you swap, like turn the power on, off, on, off, on, off, and you do it repetitively, it can actually reset it to factory, but that's not going to happen because you now have the battery.
Well, the battery is in the HWR product.
Yeah, the HWR
products. So, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you don't have to worry about that. So you can use even like I think we have our test set up with a smart plug. Is there any issues with using a smart plug versus the integrated timer?
No. Okay. In fact,
I would say just use the timer, but yes. It looks like Karen may have a question. So Karen, if you want, I will unmute you, and you're more than welcome to chat if you unmute yourself. You had your hand up, Karen. So I allowed you to unmute yourself if you would like to talk, unless you threw the question in chat and I just missed it. I don't think so. Okay. So you're looking at the app right now. This is the installer app, right? So the one, not the home one.
Right. Right. This is the installer app. And I started up the installer app for the Alpha HWR because that's the last one we were talking about. And that one I believe is more interesting to you guys, but I'll be glad to do the other one if you like. Nope. So if you're going to do a guided setup on the HWR product, first thing it asks is, do you want to add a schedule? So we can go through and set a schedule. And let's see if this one is okay. They've changed it. So now we're setting a schedule for it to run, when it'll be on. So we want it to run 5:30 in the morning to 12:30. So let's just say next. Is there an external control? No. So if we say temperature, we're going to run temperature mode. We can set auto adapt and just let it choose that temperature, or we could go to manual. And for manual, we can just slide these numbers up and down to have it start and stop whatever temperatures we like.
Karen, I see that you unmuted yourself. More than welcome to ask your question right now if you like. May not be able to hear you though. Paul, one of our outside guys, if I hear you chime in, Karen, don't worry, I'll interrupt. I think he heard it wrong, so I want to clarify it. There is absolutely no reason why you can't take, now we're talking the boiler, so the alpha for the boiler. As long as the boiler can provide 120 volts or 115 volts, we can turn the pump on and off through the power, or would you, how else would you turn that pump on and off?
Trying to understand the question.
Like a boiler and you had a dedicated boiler pump, you could on a dumb pump you would just power it through the boiler.
Yep.
So this doesn't have any problem with it being powered through the boiler, turned off, turned back on, turned off, turned back on through the power itself. Yeah. So you can power it from the boiler.
Right.
It just doesn't, Paul. So go ahead. Sorry.
That's the expectation.
Yeah. Okay. It's just, I think the competitor, and it doesn't cause a problem because it's not an issue, especially on the residential size. Like the Takeo version, I think actually has a like enable disable relay on theirs. But if I can just power the pump through it, why even bother?
Right.
Yeah. Right. So Paul's out of Nevada. And that's like his big thing is with the Tacos. He's like, how do I talk about why this is, you don't need a relay, right? So as long as you're providing the 115 power, you can turn it on and off, and it doesn't care that it's being turned on and off, then you don't need that. So
Right.
Paul, I think I clarified that for you. I really do like the app too, because I think I'm one of the few people that have probably actually accessed it. It's very easy to use. It was very easy to connect to the pump. I mean, let's see what else. You guys sent us out some other stuff for test, but the pump itself was very easy. And this was not on there. Oh, yeah, this stuff I don't think was on there yet, and I'm really happy to see this. And you were right about the PEX, because we also represent Uponor. So they're saying no more than 2 feet per second for return lines. And that's what you guys have done, is you've restricted it so that it can't do more than 2 feet per second. And in all honesty, on a research system, you shouldn't need that much flow, to get the hot water. So
right. So in this demo that I did here, you saw I went through and I set it at 3/4 inch copper pipe.
Yep.
And the max flow there was, I think, 3.2.
Yep.
So I took that, and then you get to the dashboard. This is your dashboard where you could, and every time you connect to it, it'll go right to this dashboard now. And you can see everything about the pump. You can see what control mode it's set on, what its set points are. Here's the trend data. You want to see how it's been running. And this is a demo, so it's all made up. If I say, show me right now it says it's at this fantasy pump is running at 1.8 gallons a minute right now. 74 degrees, 6.4 feet ahead. I can see everything about the pump right now. How long it's been running, how many cycles it's done, everything about it. The little gear in the corner, that is your settings. That takes you to some more set points that you can change or see. At this point, if you always set up the same pump, you could store your settings, and the next time you go to another setting, you could just recall that setting and pop it right in and be done.
And you do have the best thing in the world at the very bottom.
Factory reset?
Factory reset, yes. So basically it means you can play with it, and if you screw it up, you can return it back to the original factory setting. So it's always great to have that there.
So here's the demo mode on the heating product, because you have a question on that one. So if we go through the setup, here again, like I said, it shows you the different applications. If we say it's a boiler pump, that was your question earlier, we can see of all the pumps in the system, there's the boiler pump is highlighted to make sure we're talking about the same pump. And it says, okay, for a boiler pump, I'm going to suggest either constant flow or constant curve. To choose constant flow, we could just choose whatever we think it needs to be. Or we could do that calculation that I showed you earlier.
Yep.
We say it's a zone pump. What kind of heating system, what kind of heat emitters? And again, I was going to show you, though, a zone valve pump. So here it says constant pressure is the recommended. That's what we want to do. And we could either do auto adapt, manual set, which I just know it should be at X number of feet. I'll go set it.
Yep.
Or automatic identification. Automatic identification is a little process where it's going to tell you, okay, go manually open up all the valves. And then what it's going to do is it's going to run to find that duty point for all valves open.
Oh, whoa, you're kidding, right?
No. It's
okay. So basically what you're stating is when you first install the pump, make sure all of your zone valves are open so that it knows its worst case scenario. And then it will actually identify its own set point.
The instructions right before this screen here, I mean, it didn't show it long enough, but it says, go open up all the valves. Well, here now it says, okay, I ran the test. Go ahead and go close all your valves now. So it's walking you through it. And then it says, okay, with all your valves open, this is where you need to be. There's your set point. And you
So
take it.
essentially eliminates the engineering required to theorize what the system curve should be. It determines it in real world.
Yep, that's exactly.
And for replacement, Steve just chimed in. Steve's one of my coworkers. And in anyone that deals with replacement world knows that no one knows anything about how a system was designed after the fact. So you
They
can
hardly
go
know
in
it when they design it either. They don't know for sure.
You're going to basically be able to go in and ensure that you're not oversizing the pump, and you're going to guarantee that you're saving energy, because most likely it was a fixed speed pump with some type of control balancing valves instead. Oh, yeah, no, that is actually very impressive. Like, I hadn't seen that on there yet.
Yep. So I always recommend people to get the app. It's Grundfos.
Yep.
Grundfos Go new pump tool, and
I'll put a link in. Oh, wait.
Play in the demo.
I'll get an image of it.
Yep. Get in the demo, play in there. I'm not sure if the HWR stuff is out to the public yet, but the heating is, because that product is released.
Yes.
And if you go through and try these different settings,
what I'll actually do is I will send out the QR code. I'll pull it off of one of our pumps. I'll send it off to anyone that I invited to the meeting. I'll send you guys the QR code for at least the HVAC pump, so you guys can get quick access to the app. Because yes, you have the demo and you can play with it.
and then again from here you can get in and like I said before, if you go to the little gear icon in the corner, you can lock the panel so that it locks the controls out on the pump itself. It has to be unlocked from the app.
Question on that, just so we know in the end. When you say it has to be unlocked from the app, does it have to be unlocked from the same user's app?
No.
Or is it just from the okay? So anyone that is that realizes what they're doing can access it after the fact.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be just the installer. Okay, that's good. Yeah.
And I'll give one warning. I did hear of this problem already happening where the installer pushed the little stop button there, so the pump was stopped, and then he left. And the pump could not be restarted, could not be run until he came back with his app and connected to it and got it going again.
Oh yeah, because it locked into the stop setting and they couldn't get it to start.
Yep. And again, that has to be done from the app. So.
Yep, and that's one of those weird things where, yes, you could identify the app for the customer, but I wouldn't. I would, suck it up and realize that you did that by accident.
Yes.
And then go there and do it yourself. Don't give them access to the backside. Okay. Well, Mike, I don't have any questions coming through, and you've shown us the app. Like I said, I will shoot out a QR code to anyone that was here, so they can just get quick access to the app. There are a couple Grundfos apps, so I just want to make sure. Oh, Karen. Can't hear you, but you're more than welcome to talk. Sorry, the only reason I keep pausing is she raises her hand, so I just want to make sure she doesn't get anything. So thank you guys for coming in. Thank you, Mike, for being with us. Like I said, I will have this up on YouTube pretty quick. There's a lot of information in here, especially talking about how it can control itself and stuff. So I want to make sure I get this on our YouTube page as soon as possible. So I'll send that link out to you guys too, just so you have access to it. But thanks everyone for attending. And once again, Mike, thank you for being here to show us the new products.
You bet.
All right, everyone have a good nice afternoon, and thank you all.
Thank you.